let's have a look at how we're going to deform this character using the Advanced Skeleton rig. First, let's have a look at the difference between motion system and deformation system. In the outliner, you'll have two groups by now. One being the Advanced Skeleton rig, secondly, it's your geometry. To keep this as clean as possible, we are going to parent the geometry under the rig. Open up the Advanced Skeleton top node, and you'll find a designated holder for all geometry called geometry. Go ahead, parent the geometry under there. Secondly, let's dig a bit deeper in the hierarchy. Under the main control, you'll find Fit Skeleton, which allows you at any time to go back, rearrange your Fit Skeleton, and rebuild the Advanced Skeleton. Motion system. This is everything that controls the rig. NURBS, curved joints, groups, and various constraints. Deformation system. A joint chain running through your entire character, and this is what we will skin the geometry to. You could start picking joints in here, and select geometry as well and start binding. However, there are utilities to help speed up this process. Let's have a closer look at the Advanced Skeleton utilities. In here, under the skinning tab, you'll find some buttons that will help you with the binding. Go to build pose, resets your motion system back to default pose. Select the form joints. This will select all the joints intended for the binding. Motion system hide and show allows you to quickly toggle the visibility of the actual motion system, leaving only the visibility of the deformation system, the single joint chain. Very handy when you're working with the binding, that you only see the geometry and the joints that you are binding to. At this point, we can simply bind the geometry by using the select the form joints function, and through the outliner we'll add to the selection control click on the geometry, then skin the character, but make sure the bind skin option box has bind to set to selected joints and not the default value of joint hierarchy. As we turn back on the visibility of our geometry and switch back on our motion system, we can now see we have character deformation. The weights you get by default smooth binding, however, is not always the best, and I will now show you an alternative method that will give you better weights. So let's go back a few steps, reopen the scene before any skinning was applied to the character. This is a character as it was a few minutes ago, no skinning applied. This time what we are going to do, instead of selecting the form joints and using the normal spine skin, we are going to use the skin cage feature. This is going to build a pre-skin cage around our character from which we can transfer the weights to our geometry. Let's start off by hiding our motion system, templating our geometry, and then create the skin cage. You'll now see the skin cage on our templated character, and the next step now is to grab these green profile curves and scale them to roughly match your character. As you can see, there is a second display layer called Skin Curves 2. Switching that on will show us our red in between curves. We can go ahead and adjust this as well to better match our geometry. As we adjust the red in between curves, keep in mind these will determine the size of your deformation. Let's for example look at this elbow. There's a green curve spot on your elbow. That's going to be your 50% weighting right there, halfway. The red curves leading up to and after the elbow, the distance to these curves determines the length of your deformation. Moving the red curves towards your green curve is going to give you a very short deformation area. Should you move the red curves away from the green curve, you're going to get a much longer deformation area. So we have now matched the right hand side of the character to our geometry, and we'll use the mirror function right to left to get the other side identical. At this point we're going to go ahead and transfer the weights from the skin cage to our geometry. Let's switch off the visibility of the skin curves and the skin cage and only see our geometry. And pick all the geometry I would like to transfer the weights to, which in this case we're going to make it all, so we'll just go ahead and select all that geometry and click the copy skin weights to select the match button. And now we'll see that we have achieved much better skin weights. Tweaking the results you get with the skin cage is very straightforward. All you need to do is turn back on the visibility of the skin weight cage and the skin weight curves, hide your motion system, and let's say, for example, we wish to achieve a much sharper deformation on the elbow. Grab your red in between curves, move them closer to the green curve, and select the geometry that's going to be affected, and hit copy to selected mesh again, and you will see that you get a much sharper deformation. Once you're happy with the weights that you've gotten from transferring from the skin cage, simply delete the skin cage. No need to keep that anymore. That's it. We have a skin character, and in the next video we'll look at how to create the low-res version of the character.